The inflation rate slowed slightly in April, rising 2.7%. With more, I want to bring in CTV's Tony Grace to break it down for us. Tony, good morning. What are you discovering?
Good morning to you, Marcia. Well, this month we are looking at food and gas prices having the biggest impact on inflation. So overall, that number, yeah, it's good news for people who are waiting for those interest rates to come down, for their corresponding payments on variable rate mortgages or car loans to come down, because it's all driven by inflation when it comes to the decision on when that interest rate might come down, a big factor. So inflation, 2.7%. That's lower than the 2.9 in March, and it's getting closer to the 2% target that the Bank of Canada wants to see sustained evidence of before they start bringing interest rates down. So let's take a look at those prices a little more closely, because food prices, you go into the grocery store and you might think, well, food prices are still pretty high. Nonetheless, they're 1.4% higher than they were 1 year ago, and that's a lower number than we were dealing with last month. But gas, on the other hand, 6.1% higher than it was 1 year ago, so that's putting upward pressure on the inflation rate. And those are a couple of the core measures of inflation, along with housing. So that leads us to today's number of 2.7%, lower than it was last month, closer to that 2% where the Bank of Canada wants to see it, and overall, Marcia, within that comfort zone of 2 to 3%, but still on the northern end of it, if you will.
How could today's numbers impact the next interest rate announcement in the first week of June?
Well, we've been hearing from more economists since I spoke with you last, Marcia. One senior economist at CIBC thinking the Bank of Canada will have enough evidence to make its first interest rate cut June the 5th. That, by the way, is just 2 weeks from now. But a senior economist at TD thinking it's going to be July. And that would be 6 weeks later. So it's June the 5th or July the 24th that we're dealing with. The CIBC economist saying June 5th. The TD one thinks it will be later because, notes the TD economist, it's still in that high end of between 2 and 3%. Remember, the Bank of Canada wants clear evidence that inflation is in check before it starts to bring down interest rates, a decision that is probably going to take the rate down by 1/4 of a percentage point when it happens, but one that a lot of folks are waiting for, Marcia.
They sure are. Tony Grace, thanks for that. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.